You're listening to the Be So Good podcast with Colin Pearce. Colin says you are 10 times better than you think. So why not be so good they can't ignore you? Here he is, Colin Pearce.
Hey there, it's episode 23 of the Be So Good podcast. Not everyone wants to stand out, I know. Many people are happy believing the life they have now is as good as it gets. They've got no bigger ambition than to make it through to morning tea today and Friday this week. But that's not you, is it? You number among that 5% who want to achieve above average, to stand out in the crowd, to stand up and be counted. Well, there are a lot of forces conspiring against that ideal. You've discovered that, haven't you? And we need as much help and inspiration as we can get if we're going to build a remarkable business brand or even just a remarkable personal brand. Here's a guest who's a mum with 2 kids, who's also a keynote speaker and consultant and the author of The Standout Effect. She loves good food and wine, she says. It's Kirryn Zerna. And like her book title, she loves to help you create a remarkable and unforgettable experience in whatever you're doing. Funny thing is, most of the guests in the Be So Good podcast have that similar theme, being so good you can't be ignored. Think them through. Roger Crawford, Jim Cathcart, Michael Harrison, Bob Beaumont, they all exemplify the same ideal. And Kirryn's smart too, holding a Bachelor of Management and a Masters of Management, and is a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. She says her best conversations are about creating remarkable brands, building a business, and how to find value and purpose in all you do, whether it's in life or in business. Here's the standout author of The Standout Effect. It's Kirryn Zerna. Kirryn is a mother of 2, her wife of 1, and the good thing about him is that he was a South Australian and that he has come from the Clare Valley. And so you didn't come from the Clare Valley, though, did you, Kirryn? You came from New South Wales and he found you, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. We met in Sydney.
Well, he was a wise man for moving to Sydney for that purpose. Now, Kirryn, you've been involved in your professional life before these days. You were with Westpac for a long time, and in fact, you were in telephone banking. What was that?
Well, that was my very first job, telephone banking. So when I left school, I looked down at the newspaper and thought, okay, well, I'm going to uni. What's going to be my part-time job? The newspaper had a role for at a call center, and it was $19 an hour. And I was like, oh my goodness, all of my riches have come at once. So that was the start of working at Westpac. And yet throughout that time, the predominant thing that I did was communications, marketing, employee comms, corporate comms, project comms. If you could communicate it, I could do it. So that's what I did a lot at Westpac, in all sorts of roles, but it's predominantly in communications. So as I said, whether it's corporate comms, project comms, marketing comms, I was helping to communicate at Westpac. And so that was a great opportunity, because they have, at one point, it was like 40,000 employees. So to be able to work at that scale, to be able to be tapped into some of the best practice was phenomenal. And when I left there, it was a redundancy. It was one stint in the New South Wales government, and it was my second baby. And, you know, I remember sitting when I was at Westpac, I always had this dream to start my own business. I always wanted to. I used to sit up on that 20th floor office and look out at the planes in Sydney that were coming into land. And I was like, I just want to be on one of those. And so I think all of the pre-work that I'd done sort of led me to that point when I was there with my little 3-month-old baby, like, how do I start my business? How do I branch out into this new world of entrepreneurship, which is it took me to that point of, so for, as you said, Colin, a lot of your listeners are either business owners themselves, or they understand that position to be able to build their profile and get known and to grow. So I kind of had to learn that from scratch, because I had no list. I had no profile. Everyone knew me in that corporate corporate space. And I had, at that point, I also had no income. So I had to literally start from scratch. So yeah, it's been interesting to kind of blend together that corporate background, then being able to experience it in the government. So how that works in the government, and then to start and build a business sort of from scratch as a small business owner.
How would you give us a belt at your infamous elevator speech? I hate the term. I hate the idea. And the idea of an elevator speech where you're going to meet somebody in an elevator and they're going to say, oh, that sounds fantastic. Come and I'll give you $1 million. But anyway, I've let off steam about elevator speeches many times. Give us yours just for laughs.
Yeah, well, I sort of already did subtly, which was what I do is I help business leaders. So people who do work within an organization that want to build their personal brand. And I also help business owners or entrepreneurs. How do they get known for their expertise, for their experience in the online environment using digital tools, and how do they grow? So how do they grow their business? How do they grow their influence? And how do they grow their network so that they can step into the things that they most love to do, which is, whether that's to share a message, whether that's to sell something, or whether that's to, ultimately to serve in a certain way. So it's how do you help people what I do is help people get known, and how do they grow using online tools.
So you're the helping people get known lady.
Yes, that's right. And particularly what I love, is I love working with people that, whether they work within an organization or they're a business owner and they want to get known for something. So if you've got expertise or experience and you really want to know, how do I differentiate myself from other people, whether it's in my industry or beyond, how do I get known for something? Because I think there's an immense opportunity right now, particularly as the world has the focus is turned online. But here we are.
Yeah.
For the last year or so, it's going to be all about COVID and switching to online tools. And as we no doubt move out of that into as we recover, they're still going to be held on to some of those online tools. So how do we maximize that opportunity while everyone is looking at you? How do you get known? How do you stand out? What are some of the simple things that you can do just to stand out from your competitors? That's what particularly I love to do. I love to help people get known for their expertise.
Well, that was an elevator speech that I reckon took us to the top of Sears Tower, all 103 stories of them, because that's more like what I'm talking about. You've explained who you are, you explained what you do, and now that makes me ask, how did you get known as the lady who helps people get known? Because you said you had no, no leads, no public knowledge of yourself, and you were just out there in the wild blue yonder. So what did you do?
Yes, good question. And I think this is why I love to tell that story, is because it's a question that, like, all of us, if you're looking to build your profile, have to ask, like, what do I do? How do I do it? Where do I start? Particularly when, we don't have a lot of time. Everyone's sort of got a million competing priorities. We may not know. It's not as if there's too little information out there. There's so much. So how do you discern where to start? And does it even work? Like, this is some of the barriers and blockages that I find when I work with clients, and I'm sure that many of your listeners also meet. Where do I start? And so for me, when I was sitting there in my garden apartment, out in the garden with a notebook in Artarmon, when I had my baby was asleep and my 4-year-old was being babysat by ABC for Kids, where do I start? And I guess the first thing is, well, first of all, you've got to have a bit of a plan. And what's in that plan? I think it's just simply starting to ask yourself some questions like, well, who am I as a brand? Who am I as an expert? Who am I as a salesperson or as a corporate executive? Who am I as a brand? That seems like one of those funny sort of esoteric questions, but it's really starting to unpack, what's unique about me, what's different, and then how do I express that? So who am I? How do I help? So what is it uniquely that I do that perhaps other people don't do? So how do I help? And who do I help? Because it really does come into, you always know when you're meeting someone that's just starting out and you say, who's your audience? And they're like, everyone wants to buy my product. And it's actually, there's going to be someone, even if you start, there's going to be someone you can start with. So who do I help? So who am I? How do I help? And who do I help was a really useful few questions to ask in that process.
I didn't know you were going to say exactly that in that order, but while you were speaking, here's something for everybody to know. If you become a member of the Colin Pierce Academy, the first and primary course in the membership is the Business Leadership Blueprint, and it makes you answer all Kirryn's questions. And it begins with, who are you? As in terms, not like, who are you? Who do you think you are? It really does say, who do you think you are? Why is that so important, Kirryn?
Yeah, well, particularly so I do a lot of work with unpacking that when it comes to the online space, because when you look at knowing who you are as a brand is exceptionally important, because it makes you memorable. So if you know who, like you can, if you, anything with me, I always have sort of a pop of yellow, it's yellow becomes that color. It's memorable. I have an association back with my brand. It makes me different to other people. So it's distinctive. And what it also does is it ultimately shows your personality. And when you can reflect a personality, that's what people connect with. People connect with people as opposed to connecting with some faceless brand. So it makes you memorable, it's distinctive, and it creates that connection. So it's absolutely important. And through my, no doubt through the work you do, and also I take that a next step further with how do you express that online to make it stand out and be memorable. So it's really
so you start with your plan. You said a bit of a plan, but that is a whopping plan really for people to sit and work through. And most people won't do that. They will just say, well, you've had them come to you. I've had them come to me for 30 years. Say, how do you get started? Like, how do you get into the speaking business? And you just want to cry in despair about them. And I've had people say, right, I've heard you make a lot of money. So where do you start? And it's exhausting to say, well, you need a plan. Yeah, but how do you get your first booking? You need a plan. Who are you? What have you got to say? And how will you help anybody? Well, okay, there was your plan. What next?
Yeah. And that's it. When it gets to the online space, it sort of goes from also, well, what are you going to say? What is that key topic? What is it that, and this is a part, as you say, it's often quite glossed over. And no matter what your business is, whether you're a retail business or whether you're a services business or whether you are the business, knowing what you're going to say is vitally important, because as you say, if you don't have clarity around what you offer, you can completely get lost. It can be too waffly, or people miss the point. Maybe you put everything on the shelf when really you should be focusing on one or two things. So having some clarity around what you're going to say is important. Would you add anything to that?
Oh, I was just thinking the other night I was on a podcast with a chap from Kentucky who, believe it or not, has 22,000 followers for his water pressure cleaning advice.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have thought there would be more than 7 people who could be bothered. 22,000. I was on the podcast, or people chatting backwards and forwards. Their raison d'etre is simple. We clean things that are dirty with high pressure water. They're in a lucky position of being able to specify that they do cleaning of dirty stuff, dirty buildings, dirty driveways, dirty gutters, and they do it with water pressure. It's hard for people to get that down to just a couple of words, isn't it?
Yes. And well, and I suppose that's where why people do work with marketers, because they have got the amazing skill of, as you say, succinctly putting that down. But I think it's also having, when it comes to creating a content plan, this is similar to speaking. It's knowing what your message is and knowing the ways you're going to say it. So what's your message? What do you want to be known for? What are you doing? What's the different things that are coming up that you can sell and you can promote? What are some things that you can share that shows your expertise? Maybe it's sharing articles, particularly in the social space. You don't have to create everything. Maybe you want to share some things that other people have said and you add value to that. And also in the social space, part of what you want to say is also maybe there's aspects that show your personality. So if you were like that water pressure business, maybe what's also relevant to that, it could be, where's the fun in that? They might show some fun videos, or they might show, a Friday fun fact, or, who, like, the dirtiest things that you've ever seen, like some fun things, which also creates engagement. So it doesn't, when you're trying to come up with a content plan for online, it doesn't have to be all serious facts and figures. It's that breadth, that the variety of that is what makes interesting content to engage with. And then the method part is, well, how do you keep doing that in interesting ways? Do you do a video, like a day in the life of like the process of how you use the product that you're trying to sell? Do you do an interview? So like what you're doing now, you go and interview people who are great at their topic, and then you kind of get that lovely osmosis factor happening because you're connecting with other experts. Do you just create some lovely images which are photos, or maybe they're designs that you've made up yourself? So there's a myriad of different ways that you can tell your story, and I think where it's hard is, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. So it's more about, okay, well, let's pull it back to a bit of a plan. What are you going to do, if you were to post 2 times a week for the next 4 weeks? What's that going to be? And you map it out and you plan for it, and that helps you to be able to get the job done.
When you say post, are you talking about doing a Facebook Live, having your own email campaign or newsletter? What are some of the, narrow down some of those thoughts for us?
Yeah, because I think that's it. When you know what you're going to say, also where are you going to say it, is part of that process of how to get known. And there's a number of different digital tools out there. And honestly, there's always something new. I know that we're recording this earlier in the year, and you're going to hear this probably around May. So there's probably going to be something new at the moment. If you look on there's this new thing that's out at Clubhouse at the moment. There's, last year was all about TikTok. There's always a new app. But what I like to say when it comes to working with business owners or business leaders who are generally time poor is, how could you focus on 1 or 2 social media platforms that are going to connect to the people that you want to speak to, and that you can confidently and capably commit to. So the ones that I tend to talk about, which are the sort of 3 big ones, is LinkedIn. So if you want to get known for your expertise, if you want to build a professional network, then LinkedIn is a fantastic place to build credibility. So that would be a place where you could share an article, where you could put up a video, where you could share a photo of some of the things that you're doing. You could write an article. There's the second one is Instagram. And I think Instagram's a little bit like a shop front for your business. It's all photos and videos, and it's like, if you imagine you're walking down Rundle Mall in Adelaide or Pitt Street Mall in Sydney, then you're walking past all these shops. What is it about those shops that attracts you and draws you in? And that's what Instagram does. It should attract people into your business, whether it's a product or services business. And once you're there, how do you create engagement? So that's Instagram. And the third one that is it's got depends what the number is at the moment, but almost 3 billion people. So that's like almost a third of the world's population are on Facebook. Now, it's pretty overwhelming at the moment, Facebook. Where it's useful is if people are looking for advertising. So Facebook would be if you're looking to really get in front of particularly consumers or people who are, you want to get in front of people. It's got advertising, and it's also great for community collaboration. So about a third of Facebook users use Facebook groups, and they're a great way to create community and collaboration. So they're probably my three when I talk about using social. I'd talk about LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and they're useful tools for people to use.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, but you explained it so well. Let's take somebody who works for a corporation or works for a small business, even an international one, a chap or chapess who might be selling home health equipment. Now, all their leads come from usually shopping centres where people say, would you like a flyer? Would you like a flyer? Give us your name. And would you like somebody to call by and see you? So the salesperson calls by and sees them. Most of their life depends on those leads. Would you recommend that they get involved in being known under these methods that you've described?
Yeah, so I think there's all sorts, it serves every business, and it serves every business in different ways. So for that type of business, I think when I walk into the shopping centre, like let's say HelloFresh or one of those ones, I always see HelloFresh or one of those food delivery services in the shopping centre. What gives credibility to that experience is the fact that I've seen them somewhere before. So I've seen them on, whether it's subconsciously rather than consciously, I've seen an ad, I've seen maybe something popped up on the side of my Facebook, and I've had this sort of subliminal experience, so that by the time I come and see them in the shops, I think that it's credible and it will help solidify, I suppose, that purchasing experience or that buyer's experience. And so the same goes then for a business that's focused in on a local area. Even if it's a smaller business, how do you get people to either, and maybe it's when you leave, maybe I've only seen you for the first time in the shopping centre, but how do I get that recognition again after that experience? And so it could be that focusing in on who are the people. So from an advertising perspective, you've got a Facebook page, who lives in that local area, and it might be people that are interested in going to that particular shopping centre, that you're able to target with ads. And so even if subliminally they're seeing your brand and having that brand recognition, it's just another way to, it may not be the thing that closes the deal, but it could be the thing that helps close the deal with that brand recognition piece.
Yes, and maybe even stories on Facebook, LinkedIn. Just visited a gentleman who was living on his own, and his son was concerned about the ulcers on his legs, and so when I called, I was able to help him out with some this or that, and that was a wonderful thing for him, blah blah. And now that doesn't have to be, so if you've got ulcers on your grandpa's legs, call me now. It's just a nice story which helps you become known.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those success stories.
And as I said, like I remember I was at a conference and I was meeting with someone who had a carpet business, and they were like, oh, how do I do this? And I was like, okay, well, one thing is that you want to have the content that's going on because he's like, no one's even looking at it, no one's even clicking on my content. I said, okay, well, first thing is remember the shop front. What's that experience that I have when I see you for the first time? Is it going to give me a sense of credibility that you are the real deal, that you know what you're doing? So it might be that maybe you don't get heaps of hits on every single Facebook post you ever make, but when I go to look you up, I'll find something I can see that you are the real deal. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, how do you find those clients who want to buy a carpet? And so that's where it kind of goes into this fairly small investment of trying to look up who's searching for carpet right now, who's about to move home, so that you can actually be targeting those people who want to buy what you have to offer at the time that they need it. And I think that's what social media has kind of created a bit of a game changer around.
Sure has. And this has worked for you quite obviously because you've empowered over 3,000 leaders and business owners in the last couple of years. You led training in over 100 workshops, facilitated leadership teams and functional teams with project initiatives, and you have become quite the star among the professional speaking business because you're now on the national board, and I believe you're working on a convention which is well and truly gone by now, but I'll bet it was successful. And
Yes.
the thing that fascinates me as I read about you is that you've helped people like the Australian Radio Network, Aussie Home Loans, Allianz, and so on. Are they in corporate settings? You've helped the corporate decision makers and the corporate marketers, or Joe and Joe S sitting in a training room? How do you relate to those people about getting known and being known?
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about what I do. I think the diversity, and why I say I help leaders and entrepreneurs. So when it comes to some of the bigger organizations, so going into work with Australian Radio Network or Allianz, I'm going into, on one hand, work with the sales team. So how do they build their profile so that they can represent the brand? And so when you're working in with leaders, how do you build your personal brand, your professional profile, so that you can attract clients, so that you can grow your influence, so that, you know, when you go and speak at an event, you've got that sort of gravitas already and you build credibility. So one hand's the leaders, so that's, and then the other hand is I've done a lot of work working with the New South Wales government provided program, which is called Business Connect, and so it's a fantastic program providing business advice. And I've that's where I've delivered a lot of workshops helping business owners, and I love it. I walk into those rooms and I've literally got like a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, a funeral director. I've worked with, you know, all sorts of different sorts of businesses, and for them it's kind of a micro business. There might be 1 to 5 people, and helping them, how do you set this up? What are some of the structured processes I can go through, and giving them the tools to do it. So yeah, it's either working with leaders or working with business owners is the work that I do.
Wow. How do we work with you? You've pricked so many consciences and burst a few balloons of oh, nobody loves me, nobody cares, I think I'll go and eat worms. And you're saying it's all possible to eat more than worms. So how do we contact you for this kind of help? Because you've stirred us.
Yes, thank you, Colin. So I've got a book which is available, and the purpose for me creating this book, which is called The Standout Effect, it's how to stand out without selling out in the age of online influence. Now, the book is really a do-it-yourself guide. So I'm always interested in not just helping people learn, but how to actually turn that learning into action so that you can apply it. And so the book is almost like a step-by-step, take you through it. Here's what to do. Here's how to do it so that you can implement it for your own business. And so the book is definitely one. And you can really find out all the information about me on my website, which is kirrynzerna.com. You probably have to look it up to spell it, KIRRYNZERNA.com. I'm also on LinkedIn.
And by magic, it just appeared on the screen anyway.
Just then. And also I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram are my main ones. And I'd love to connect with you, love to catch up with you. And I think just to end, the final thing, Colin, if I may, which is so vitally important, whether you're a leader or a business owner, you know, it's great to have the plan, to know who you are, to know what you're going to say, to know how you're going to say it and who you say it to. The final one is 2 simple words. And I tell you what, these 2 simple words are, whether you're the most, and it's consistent for some of the big stars, for the most popular brands, and for those people who are doing well. 2 simple words, and they are show up. You know, those who make an impact, who get known, who grow online are the people who show up. And I love this quote that says, the world is run by those who show up. You know, it's about being consistent. It's about, you know, even when it's hard, digging deep and showing up, posting something for the day, posting something again the next week, posting something the next week. And that consistency will be critical to a business or a business leader being able to get known and to grow their expertise.
Show up. Can we talk again, please? Because I'd love to expand on this and present you again on your VIP principle, because some people at that time may not have seen this interview, and I hope they do. We'll talk about this, how to make your VIP model relevant for everybody in these perilous times. Would you do that for us?
Yes, I'd be delighted.
Thank you. Kirryn Zerna has been our guest, and as you can see, she's a person who was easy to get to know, and that's what she's been about. Get to know, be the person who is known for being known. Thank you, Kirryn. All the best. Till next time.
Colin. Yes, thank you, Colin, and thanks to your listeners and viewers, and look forward to staying connected and catching up with you all soon.
No doubt about it, Kirryn's a standout. Now, as usual, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. Will you drop a comment in your browser for YouTube or iTunes to give the Be So Good podcast a boost in the ratings, because more people need to hear it, and I'd love that if you'd help us out. And if you do a download now and again, that seems to tell Mr., Ms. or Mrs. Google that people are paying attention. And I hope you'll take up my invitation to try out the free 30-day trial of the Colin Pearce Academy. It might cost you $1 because that's how the access system works, sometimes. Anyway, you'll have access to all the courses, speed read people in a blink, convert your inbound phone leads, the business leadership blueprint, and the flagship course, Sell More, Easier, Faster, all designed to help you stand out. Now, the address is simple. colinpearceacademy.com. Hit the word enroll in the navigation bar and use the coupon code 30-day trial. You have to fill in your details, and then when it asks you to pay, use that coupon code. Now, simple thing. You stay up until the 30 days, and if that's enough, then you leave. If you'd like to stay on, we'll charge you the monthly fee in advance, and you can stay as long as you like or withdraw when you're full. Here's that link again.
You've been listening to Be So Good with Colin Pearce. For more episodes, check the playlist at colinpearce.com/podcast. And don't forget to drop a review in the iTunes listing.